Welcome back. This is going to be a very brief introduction in using PowerShell, which from at least some indications looks like it's going to replace at some point in time the standard command line that we've been learning about. Now, does that mean we've wasted our time? No. We've talked about different kinds of concepts like file names, directories, redirection, that all apply when you use PowerShell. Alright, so I've got the PowerPoint slideshow for PowerShell open right now, and I'm just going to go over a few things within PowerShell before I start demonstrating things. Alright, so for instance in Windows 7 you can simply type PowerShell in the search bar to get to it. Now in Windows 8, 8.1, and I presume in Windows 10, you can also do a search, go to the apps window, or click, or I'm sorry, not click, but type the Windows key plus R. Now, I have what's installed because it's slightly different whether you have Windows 7 or Windows 8. And again, I have to assume Windows 10 is similar to Windows 8. But in all of the installations, you will have both a PowerShell and a PowerShell ISE. Now, the difference is that the ISE is short for Integrated Scripting Environment, which I have right here. Okay? Now, if you want to create scripts using PowerShell, it's a nice little programming environment. I'm not going to demonstrate that because, as I said at the beginning, this is just going to be a very brief introduction in what PowerShell is like. Now, Windows 7, when you type PowerShell in the search bar, will also display something called PowerShell modules. Now, as far as I can tell, this is not available in Windows 8. Apparently what it does is it loads all the different system modules that PowerShell uses, so you don't have to waste time waiting for a certain module to load. Now, I haven't used PowerShell enough to be able to tell whether this is a big deal or not. At any rate, it doesn't appear to be in Windows 8, so maybe they have something else going on that helps modules load faster, or maybe just the modules just automatically all load when you're in Windows 8. I don't really know. Now, the current version of PowerShell is called version 5, and from what I can tell, version 5 is very, very new. So it doesn't really matter that much if you've got version 5. If you have if you have Windows 8.1, you most likely have version 4. At any rate, you can tell what version you have by using this variable. Now, what that variable will do is give you a table that lists several pieces of information, one of which is the PowerShell version. Now, there is a command called getHost that I mention right here that is supposed to get the PowerShell version, but several things I've read online indicate that getHost may not give you what the underlying engine is that PowerShell is using for handling the commands. And the PS version table will. So, from what I can tell, PS version table is more reliable than getHost. Alright, so how do you use that variable? Well, let's go and we'll actually start up PowerShell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the I always call them the squares window. This window has an actual name, and I'm sorry that escapes me right now. But I'm going to bring up the window here that's your default window in Windows 8. I don't know if it's your default window in Windows 10. At any rate, what I want is the search button here, so I'm going to click that. and simply type PowerShell. Now you can get to PowerShell through your All Apps screen, and when I have the search bar it doesn't show up, but if you move your mouse down to lower left corner of your screen, your All Apps button will show up. Alright, tiles, that's what I'm trying to remember, sorry about that. So the tiles screen, I'm just going back to that simply so I can get the search button. Alright, so with PowerShell up, I get back several things. So I've got PowerShell integrated scripting environment and just simply the Windows PowerShell where you can type in commands, and that's all we're going to be using in this video. Sorry. Now, one of the things I'm going to do before I type in this variable is show you a little bit about the window. Now, the window looks very similar to what you would get when you open up the command line we've been dealing with. You can make changes to the window by right-clicking on the title bar, selecting Properties. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the font layout. I'm not going to bother with the background colors. White on blue, I believe it's navy blue, is going to be work all right for us, I think. So I'm just going to go to Font, and I'm going to leave it set to Lucida Console. I just want to change the size of the font. And I'm going to click OK. And this has been coming up every so often. I'm not exactly sure. There we go. My font's a little bit too big. I thought 20 was going to be okay. So let me go back in here, and I'll just set it to 18. There we go. Thank you. Alright. So we get a slightly smaller window. I just didn't want the window taking up the entire screen. Alright, so I'm going to type in the variable PS version table. Now the actual variable name is PS version table. The $sign at the end of it, at the beginning of it, allows you to use it. So I'm going to type $sign PS version table. And nothing happened because I didn't type it in correctly. Alright, so I can recall commands with the arrow key. So there is a command history, and it takes a little bit of time. There we go. So what we're most interested in is the PS version item listed here, and it's listed as 4.0. So I have PowerShell version 4 installed in the Windows 8.1 operating system I'm going to be using. Alright, now notice a few other things. I did not type in all the capital letters for the variable name. So just like with the command line we've already been dealing with, when you look up examples online, they have capital letters for the first letters of the commands. Don't have to type them in. Alright, so let me go back to the PowerPoint. And I do have, if you want to update the version of PowerShell installed that you currently have, directions, if you run this PowerPoint, you can just simply click on the installing Windows PowerShell text, but this is the link that it'll take you to. So you can simply copy and paste this link in your browser, and it'll take you to directions on how to install the latest version of PowerShell. Alright, so go to the next slide, and I just want to talk about some of the differences and similarities. You do have a normal mode and an administrator mode in PowerShell. You use it for the same reasons. Administrator mode allows you to make changes to the system. Title bar allows you to change properties. There's a history. You can use path names, you can use wildcards. The asterisk and the question mark work the same way for character substitutions. All right. Now, you have tab completion, so you can start typing a command in and then use tab to try to complete after that, after you've typed in a few characters. Now, we talked, in part 6 we talked about how you can have multiple commands separated by the ampersand character. Well, in PowerShell you can separate commands using just the semicolon. So it's a bit easier to type in than having to use a shift and get the ampersand. If you've used Linux, you know using a semicolon is how you can separate multiple commands on the command line in Linux as well. Now, just like I showed you, commands can be typed lower, upper, or mix. You do have redirection using both the pipe symbols and the greater than signs. Now, one thing you don't have access to at all is any of the system variables we talked about in the command line. So like user profile, home path, Winder, those variables are not available while you're in PowerShell. Alright, commandlets. That's what the commands are called in PowerShell. They're called commandlets. Apparently because they do small programs that perform different types of commands for you. Now you can create your own. We're not going to be talking about that, but I want you to make you aware of it. But there's literally thousands of commandlets already included with PowerShell. Now commandlets follow a strict naming convention. They use a verb-noun convention separated by a dash. So for instance, if you have a verb like get, then you follow it with a dash and then it acts on some kind of noun like help. So an example of complete commandlet would be, for instance, get help. So let me click over here and simply type that in. Now, in books or online help, what you'll see is the commandlet listed this way, with the first letter of each word capitalized. But just like the variable I typed in, you don't have to type it that way. Now the biggest thing to try to remember to do is type in the dash. Since you're using a verb and a noun, it's almost like typing in English. And so it's very easy just to be typing and you forget that dash. So that's kind of one of the big hurdles to get over, is to remember while you're in PowerShell to include that dash. So if I type in get dash help, there's a lot of stuff that just went by about getting help in PowerShell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back up. And so you can start getting help immediately by having it tell you how to use help, how to update help, how to get help on various commandlets, as it's talking about here. All right. Now, remember, oops, I'm sorry, I scrolled down too far. Remember I said that you can use redirection. So for instance, I can use the pipe command to pipe this. There is a more command. Strictly speaking, more is an alias. And we'll actually talk a little bit about aliases towards the end of the PowerPoint. Now, this allows you, just like it did before, to display things one screen at a time so that you can read things slowly. But if you want to scroll back up, you can scroll back up as well. All right. Now, commandlets have what are called parameters. They're like the switches you learned about on the command line. So just like switches, they modify the behavior of the commandlet. And but this time you specify with a dash in front. So the next few parameters I'm going to talk about actually control the execution of your commands. And if you see, for instance, with this what if parameter, there's a dash in front of it, right there. So these are parameters to the commandlets and modify the behavior. So these are just a few. The one thing to remember though is these are not all supported by all the commandlets. But the good news is you'll just simply get an error message if it doesn't support it. It's not going to cause any kind of problem other than that. Alright, so for instance, let's say I want to use a commandlet called remove item to delete text, a text file. I can type remove item listing.txt dash what if, and the what if will tell me, give me a little brief description of what will happen when I type that command in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first I'm going to get a listing of what's in my home directory so we can play around with this a little bit. Now notice there's dir, and it gives you a slightly different output. And actually, the commandlet that dir is an alias of, or a shortcut of, child item, is the actual commandlet that gets me the same information. Alright? So as you can imagine, dir is a bit easier to type in. Now, I have some items out there. So I can do remove item dash what if, and I'm going to test dir 3. So what it says, performing the operation remove directory on target C users Mark Monica test dir 3. So it says what it's going to do. It's going to remove that directory. Now, watch what happens when I use the exact same command, but this time I'm going to specify one of the files I've got down there. .txt. Now it says it's going to remove a file on the target. New files, it's going to remove that file. So you don't have different commands for removing directories and files. You can use the exact same command. That may not always be the case, but in this case, remove item works that way. But also, I just wanted to see, show you what would happen if you specify that. Now, you also have a dash confirm parameter, so you can include confirm, so it asks you before you accidentally delete something you may really want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the what if to dash confirm. And now it asks me all sorts of things. The default is yes, so if all I do is press enter at this point, it will delete the item. Now, it says down here default is Y, and it has the default highlighted in yellow right here to clue you in that that's the default. Now, A, yes to all, is if you had specified several files on the command line to remove. And then instead of having to say yes or no to each one of them, you could just say A, which would be yes to every single one. Now you can just say no by pressing N. You don't type in the full word no, you don't type in the full word yes. you just use the single letter that's listed here in the square brackets. Now, there's also L, which is no to all. And it's a little weird, but remember A is already taken for yes to all. And then there's suspend. And then there's question mark for help about remove item itself. But what the heck is suspend? Well, if you type S and hit enter, you get a prompt back that gives you two greater than signs. Now what that's indicating is that it's supposed to be a visual clue to let you know that you've got a pending operation that's waiting for you to decide something. And what you do is you use this time to actually figure out if you may not want to delete that file. Maybe you want to double check that, okay, is that the right file? Was there another file there? In the PowerPoint, I should make mention that you're supposed to get 3 greater than symbols. This could have been an update that affected it to only 2 greater than symbols. But at any rate, it's still supposed to be a visual clue that you can do things here. So I can get a directory listing, dir, and just to double check, I may want to double check the list of files I got to make sure this is the file I really want to delete. And then when I'm ready to make my decision, I can just simply type exit, and it puts me back at that question again. And so I can just simply say yes or no, and I'm going to just hit enter to say yes, and it's going to delete it right away. Now, when you're trying to get help for things, you can just type get help and you get help about using help. But normally you're trying to get help about different items. So in order to get help about a commandlet, you just simply type get-help and then the name of the commandlet. So I'm going to say get help remove item. And it lists all the help because I didn't specify piping. It deletes files and folders. Here's the full syntax, gives you a description, and talks about how you can actually get more help at these points online. Now notice here under remarks, all right, to see the examples, type get help remove item, examples, or detailed, or full. This, when you do get help, the default is to give you a brief synopsis about how to use the command. So if you actually want more detailed information, for instance, maybe you know excuse me, you know what the command does, you just want some examples. Well, I'll say get help remove item dash examples. This time I'm going to pipe it, and so we can kind of go through, you can see what examples would look like. So it starts out with simple examples like example 1, remove item, test copy script, stream zone identifier. Now, to be honest, I don't remember what stream is doing in this case. Basically, stream allows you to send output to another command, but I'd have to look up exactly what the heck stream is doing in this case when we're deleting an item. Alright, and then when we press space, you get more examples that for instance, this is remove everything in the test directory. Let's see. and it gives you more examples with different options and parameters for that command. Now, you can also get more detailed help. So instead of examples, I'm going to say detailed. And you start getting about the same things that we had before. So it gives you the stream parameter, tells you what that does. And lists all the parameters and gives you the examples. And then there's full, which gives you even more information. So I'm not going to list that right now, but you get the idea. Now, I'm not sure if it's good or bad that you have to specify these different levels to get pieces of information, but it is nice just simply getting the examples if that's all you really need. The rest of it, of detailed versus full, you can decide that for yourself whether you like that or not. There's not a lot you can do about it, but you can play around with that. Now, if you're not sure about what command you want to get help about, you can specify wildcards. So for instance, I can say get help asterisk, and what it will do is it will give me a list of every single object, not just commandlets, but it'll give me variables and all sorts of other stuff with a short description. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm simply going to pipe that to more, because in the PowerPoint I have a warning. So the first description about get help asterisk says lists every object that is installed with a short description. And the warning is a repeat of that because it's a lot of items. So I'm just going to do with more. It takes it a little bit of time to get everything and build your output. So we'll just wait on this for just a little bit. All right, there. So it lists all the aliases available, and I'll just functions that you can create, commandlets. So there's a lot of things in PowerShell. It's very powerful and more complicated than the command line we've been dealing with. So I'm just going to quit out of this for now. Now you can also use the asterisk. If you don't want everything, you can, for instance, get short descriptions about things like all the get commands. So if I do get asterisk, I'm going to pipe this to more. Since there's a lot of get commandlets and functions, there's 3 functions at the top there. We're not going to talk about how to create functions right now. That's more than what we have time to get into, frankly. All right, so and notice I just quickly, it says get, and it's everything after the get is in alphabetical order. So it does give you everything in alphabetical order. All right, so let me hit Q to quit. So that gives you an idea of how you can get information about the commandlets installed. There's also, I'm not going to demonstrate it on slide 13, there are other ways to get help for a commandlet using MAN, like that, just like you would for Linux. And then you can just simply type help followed by the commandlet. Basically the difference between just saying get help and then typing these in is you automatically gives you a displays things a page at a time. Now you can use the dash examples, dash detailed, and dash full parameters with the other ways, man and help, to specify getting information about commands. Now on slide 13, I also talk about how you can update help. I have run into situations where I'm trying to get help about a specific commandlet that I know exists, but the help tells me it can't find anything. For whatever reason, the help wasn't updated, and I do show how you can update your help system by typing in a command line in administrative mode. Now, starting on slide 14, I talk about other commandlets that you can use. So let me just backspace. Now, what you can do is there's a get commandlet, and really the only thing it does is verify that a command exists. So if I say get command get dash help, it tells me it exists and what the full name is. Now, let's see if I do get command get asterisk, it will give me a brief information. Essentially, it'll list all the functions and all the commands that start with get. So this is one way to kind of get a list of things available to you. You can scroll through it and see, okay, what did I want, what did I want? And then you can get help on a particular item to double check that that's the item that you want. All right. Now, set location. This is the commandlet that allows you to change your working directory location. It's long to type in, but it actually makes a bit more sense when you think about it than typing CD. So I can set location to documents. And there I am, I'm in my documents folder. So that's how you can move around the system. You can move, say, set location / and it moves me to the root of the C drive. And I can say set dash location C : /users / Mark Monica, and it moves me back there as well. Now, I already talked about this next commandlet a little bit, get dash child item. Gives you a list of all the items that you have instead of dir. So that's how you list what's in your directory. Notice one thing, the default display for child item lists all the directories first and then all of the files. And it does show you the different bits, read-only, archive bit, that is set or not set for those particular directories or files. All right. Now, another commandlet I'm just going to show you is called get-process. I'm going to pipe this to more. And this shows you everything that's currently running on the system. AVG is my antivirus I have running. And then it's showing several other things, services that are running. Instead of using the taskbar to right-click and get what's running, you can just simply use get process in a PowerShell window. All right. Now on slide 16, I talk about some other commandlets that you actually send information to. So for instance, if I do get child item, pipe it to format wide. And it basically displays everything in a wide format. This would be the same as if I had typed in dir space /w in the old command line. All right, so you can also do a format list. And when you do a format list, it gives you a lot of pieces of information. Now, one of the things I don't show in the PowerPoint is you can actually use getChildItem for one item. So if I do getChildItem test output.txt and format it as list, it gets me all the information about that particular file. All right. All right. There's also another format. That's format table, which is usually the default way that everything gets displayed anyway. Now, on slide 18, I talk about an alternative view called OutGrid View. And what that does is that's going to open up a separate window and allow you to filter items by clicking and selecting things like filtering by name and only things that have certain text in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use getChildItem with OutGrid View. It takes a little bit of time for that to pop up. Now, one thing I should caution you is so far the display formatting that I showed you up until OutGrid View can be done on any system, but one of the things you can read online is that if you have a remote connection to a server that only has core services installed, you can't use OutGrid View to display things because it's displaying things in a window. As far as remote administration of a server, you may not always have OutGrid View available to you. Now, you can move this around. It's a completely separate window. We can sort by clicking on the column title, so I can click on that. This is almost like having just a regular Explorer window open. So I'm just going to go and sort it back with letters. Now notice when I sort, files and directories are mixed since I sorted by name. I can go back in and sort by mode, which puts the directories back first. I can sort by last write time, so I can have the most recent things at the top. Now, here's where you can filter. You can start filtering things here, or you can specify specific items you want to filter, for instance, by name. And you click Add, and then you get a separate line up here. Now notice it says, and name contains. If I say test, for instance, it automatically filters everything by the text TEST. Now, I didn't specify where in the name, so there's test dirt 3 and 2 that have test at the beginning. There's MD test bat that has test in the middle. So if you look here, there's a contains item with a line underneath it. What that is a link that you can click on to get more specific about how you want to filter. So I could say starts with, and then it only displays everything that starts with the word TEST. All right. Now to get rid of this, to get rid of the window, you just simply close it and it's gone. Alright, aliases. So what the heck are aliases? I showed you a little bit. Dir for child item, that's the alias you can type in instead of the full name child item. So if you want to find out what the aliases are that have been already defined, you can simply type get dash alias all by itself. I'm going to pipe that to more. And it'll show you what alias has been created. So for instance, cat for get content, cd for set location, chdir for set location. So a lot of the preset aliases, I didn't do this, the preset aliases mimic the command line you're used to, although the output might look slightly different. Alright, so let me quit there. So what happens if you want to get an alias for a particular, how do I want to say it? What if you want to know what an commandlet, an alias is an alias for? Well, what you do is you type get alias and then the name of the alias, like dir. And that will tell you what the actual commandlet is. Now what about the reverse? What if you want to find out if there are any aliases for a particular commandlet? Well, that's a little bit more complicated, and it is on slide 19 in the PowerPoint. You can type get dash alias. You have to specify the parameter dash definition, and then you specify the commandlet. In this case, I'll specify get child item, and there's actually several different set. There's dir, there's GCI, and then there's ls. The GCI and the ls I was playing around, so those are mine. But you can do that for any commandlet. So we can do set location, and it shows us that there's several aliases created for that as well. Alright, now how do you create an alias? Well, that's a separate command. It has its own commandlet. It's new dash alias space what you want the alias to be. Yeah, I've already created stuff for those. Let me scroll back up, see if there's something up here. I could, instead of cat, I could say type for get content. Now, what I should do first is see if type has already been defined, because what ends up happening is when you do this, if the alias already exists, you'll reset it. So I'm going to do get dash alias type. And type's already set for get content. Alright. So, to keep this fairly short, I'm going to create a new alias for get child item. So I'm going to do get dash alias list for child dash item. And I didn't specify that right. There is no commandlet called child item, sorry. So it's get dash child item. And another gotcha here is, you notice I didn't type in the command correctly at all. I forgot the get part. But when you have commandlets that have multiple words in them, once you do get used to typing in a dash, sometimes it's hard to not type in a dash for certain problems, like putting a dash between child and item. So just want to warn you about that gotcha sometimes too. So, but with this get alias, oops, not get alias, new alias, there we go. All right, so I didn't type any of that correctly. All right, so we want new alias. We want to create, the alias is going to be called list, L-I-S-T, and it's going to be an alias for get child item. So hopefully I've got everything right. Well, no error messages, so let's see what it says. Get dash alias list for child items. So if I just simply type list, there's all the items. All right. Now, slide 20, I've got some miscellaneous items there to wrap this up. So one of the things, PowerShell doesn't have a title command. So if you want to give a particular title to your window, you have to use another variable, and it's a long bugger. So I'm going to type it here, $host.ui.raw, oops, UI.window title. Okay, now the actual variable name is host UI.raw UI.window title, but we need to include the $ in front of it. Then, because we're going to assign a value, we put an equal sign. So this is almost like using the set command. All right, but we don't have to specify a separate command. So host UI raw UI window title, I'm going to name with my name. Now, the quotes I'm typing in there are required no matter what. So even if I did not have a space, I still have to use the quotes. So I'm going to do that command, and there's my name up at the title, Mark Miller. All right. Now what happens if I want to remove that? Notice, though, it's actually got two greater than signs. It's asking me for something. So it expects something after the equal sign. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll put two quotes right next to each other to symbolize nothing. I don't want to put a space because it'll actually put a space in the title. So I put two quotes next to each other, and it's still waiting. Why are you waiting? All right, so interesting. So I guess I will put a space. All right, so now it's gone. Well, that's my fault. I was thinking that should work, and I was wrong. So, but to get rid of the title, put a space in between the double quotes. All right, now, how to print. Well, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about networking, there's no way in the Windows command line to print to a local printer. You can only print to a networked printer. However, the PowerShell gives you a way of doing that, and it's simply called out-printer. Whatever command you're using, and I'll use get child item, and all you have to do is, hold on a second, let me backspace, give a little more space, get dash child item, pipe that to the commandlet out dash printer. And when you do that, it sends the output to your printer, your local printer, hooked to your computer rather than displaying it on the screen. Alright, so I'm not going to do that. Alright, now finally, how do you exit? Well, there's two ways. Just like with the Windows command, you can click the X up here, or you just simply type exit. And that's it. Okay, so that's all I want to talk about for PowerShell. As you can see, we could go on. It's very complicated. We would need 7 weeks by itself just for PowerShell to get into PowerShell in depth. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.